Hello, my name is Dr. George Mochocki, and welcome to this session 8, Human Resource Management, Managing Employee Performance. You're taking me an online class, face-to-face class, or a hybrid class, or in one of my work sessions. All right, so let's get on to this section. Remember, this whole class, this whole presentation, and this 20-minute overview is focusing from a human resource management and HR perspective. So when I'm talking about managing employee performances from an HR perspective, you're looking, is it equitable? Is it fair? Is it helping achieve the organization's mission or organization's objectives, or the department's mission or department's objective? So when I'm looking at are the measurements that I'm requesting of the employees, are they non-discriminatory? Do they work across the different functional lines? Are they comparative to other employees who have to do the same amount of work or effort to achieve the goals and rewards that may be attached to them? Okay? Are they improving quality? Are they reducing rating errors? When I'm rating individuals, because a majority of the performance evaluation should be objective, but there's that subjectivity element to it. How do I, as an HR manager, train? How do I, as an HR manager or a policy, make sure that all employees are rating employees equally for the job that they've given? How do I make sure that they're giving the feedback, that the feedback is what do you call it, the positive feedback or corrective feedback, or feedback that has some responsibility to it, feedback that basically allows the individual to improve on his or her performance? Are there any kind of ethical issues or legal issues in my performance evaluation, my payout, my how I measure employees? And then basically it's the whole overview. Okay, so this is the chapter we're going to be talking about, and let's start from the beginning. I'll make it a little bit bigger because it'll be easier for individuals. Remember, if you are taking me for any kind of a class, you already will have these concept maps. And the concept maps just allows you to see the whole picture, and then basically I could go from step to step on that. It's just a different way of learning material. Our mind is one big concept map. It's all over. I see the whole picture, and then I could just see how that fits into the topic that we're discussing. So let me go on an overview first. I'll go real quickly what this whole chapter is about. We're going to be identifying in this session what you have to look. Remember, when I have these 20-minute sessions, there's more information. You could Google it, look at the materials that I provide in the classroom, or the books, or the websites that you'll be exploring. But basically, a lot of the information here is just a general idea. From an HR perspective, I should be thinking about this. I should be doing this. Identifying performance management activities. What kind of management activities? All management has some kind of performance element. How do I make sure they're consistent, ethical, legal, and it basically helps me motivate the employee and rewards the employee adequately? Define 5 criteria for measuring effectiveness compared to major compared to major methods for measuring performance. We're going to talk about a little bit about this. Define the types of rating errors. We're all human. We see people who have the halo effect, one impression, and then we rate them negatively. It may be just on something that's physical, but that's not necessarily how you rate them. You rate them, did he or she achieve the objective, the measurements, the components that I'm asking them rating? Explain how to improve performance feedback effectively, and then summarize ways to improve improvement and unsatisfactory performance, and discuss legal, ethical issues that affect performance management. Okay, so those are something that we should be looking at all times. That's the overview. So let's now zoom over to the other side. What is performance management? Performance management, at every level, you expect individuals to perform a certain way that is acceptable to other team members, that is acceptable and actually allows the individual to both have his or her independence, autonomy, responsibility, but also achievement and self-worth, but also achieve the organizational objective. So knowing what activities you want to be measuring, outputs are desired, observing whether they occur providing feedback. Remember, you want constructive feedback, not always nagging feedback. You want feedback to help the employee. If you have helping the employees, if the employee can see they could achieve to the next level, promotion, or maybe get a higher raise or a bonus, or at least satisfy or meet some kind of goals or some kind of a commitment that he or she has made to the organization in different stages. Specify relevant aspect of performance, appraise performance, provide performance feedback, problem solving, and reward. When you look at empowerment and the other chapters, all our employees, if you look at the employees coming in, they come in as a higher level employees, high school, associate, bachelor's, even higher. So they already have higher expectation. They understand technology. They utilize technology. They're bombarded with technology. They know how to communicate in a different way, but they don't know how to communicate face to face. So when they come in, they know how to do certain things, maybe like playing a game or something. So you're looking at performance. How do I achieve these goals? So this is basically what you're doing for performance management purposes. What is the purpose? You have to tell the individual, you do these outcomes, here's the purpose. It helps satisfy the customer. It provides quality so more customers buy your products so you could maintain your job and get a raise or something else. All right? Okay, now, job performance measurement methods. Check for contamination efficiency as actual true performance. When I was doing some job performance in the corporate world, the biggest thing I would always look at, is it measuring what I want? Not because it's easy to get the data, because I get certain data, but it has nothing to do with what I'm trying to measure. And then if I'm measuring the data, could the data be contaminated? When I say contaminated, could there be people touching it? Customer surveys. There was one department I was working with, they sent customer surveys. Who initiated the customer service? The engineer or the individual who talked with the customer. So if he or she had a bad report from the beginning and the engineer or the sales rep or the customer service individual felt she was going to get a negative report, they did not trigger a customer survey to that individual. So they always received good feedback, never the negative. That basically is contaminating the feedback, contaminating the data. What you'd have to do is anytime you finish with a customer, the minute you finish with that customer and you submit the order, it automatically sends a customer feedback. And it could be at different points. It could be when the first initial contact and they hang up, customer feedback. They say, would you want a survey after this telephone conversation is over? I always said yes if I wanted to. Doesn't mean I have to listen to it, but it makes the individual, I don't know if the employee knows there could be a survey, I should talk to that person nicely. That's where when you look at some of the feedback and measurements, you have that silent shopper that a lot of retail employees don't like. Okay? So we have that comparative measurement. When you look at measurements, when you're comparing measurements, you're comparing different departments against each other and see how much input. If one department has more of an input to change the overall objective, he or she, that department should get a higher percentage of that reward, even though the other one may only have 5%, so their reward should be relevant to how much input they could have to improve the total outcome. So, but the other thing is, so that's between departments. You want to be fair on that. The other thing is between individuals. Now, a lot of them, so if you were a average type of individual, you only would receive maybe 70% of whatever the bonus is. If you're above average, you would receive 80%. If you're super duper or exceeded my expectations, as they say in business, you'd receive 100%. So a lot of managers, after a while, they don't want to take money away from the individual, and they want to motivate it, so they basically just ranked everyone the same. So what you'd have to do in simple ranking, manager ranks from highest to lowest, real easy. So, but you have to rank your number one employee to the lowest that basically helps the employees. Yeah. So, because if you say you just I got all B's, I got all C. Out of all the B's and all C's, who is your best and who's your worst? So that's just simple. Now, when I look at force distribution, they basically assign a certain category. So the first, I force rank them from 1 to B or A, B, C to whatever, and then what happens is I assign a percentage. The first 30% or 20% gets 100% of the bonus. The next 30%, if you're a B or C average, wherever you fell into the ranking, depending on how many numbers, would get the next 30%, and the last 50% got nothing because you were just an average employee. You did what I paid for. I don't know if that's a motivation, but that's some companies who utilize that consulting organization, companies who are very competitive, one way of ranking, and then paired comparison. Each employee is compared to each other. When you do the papers or the team, I try to see how you fit into the other employees. Did I grade you too harshly compared to another employee? So if you're the first employee that I graded, I may be very harsh. I'm looking for this, but after going 20, I was going, man, you were probably the best paper, and I graded you the harshest. So you may have to compare. Depends on the situation. Depends on how subjective. Is it objective? Did you get so many units? Depending on the office. Now, if it's a small office, you're not going to get 1,000,000 units. So it has to be a percentage of the total revenue that could be possible from your market that would make that as a good comparative evaluation. And you have to compare apples to apples. So I would compare the smaller offices with other smaller offices in the larger office. With other larger offices, individuals have been working there 5 years with other individuals 5 years. It wouldn't be fair to rank someone who's been there 5 years against someone who's just been there 6 months. That person with the 5 years should be a better employee, should be able to achieve the task faster, quicker, than someone who just started. So I'm looking at the employee who started, looking at all the other employees who started within that time frame, and where does he or she fit into that learning pattern. Some will learn within 3 months, so they may get a higher raise after the 6 months evaluation. Others may take the full 6 months and then are still very effective as those who learn in the 3 months. It just takes them a little bit longer. So we have different learning curves, okay? So then I'm looking at the results, management by objectives. There's always a goal. What is the goal? If I don't achieve the goal, I do not get a reward, right? If you don't, I get students come to me a lot of times and ask me, Dr. George, could I get any extra credit? I said, why would I give you extra credit? I said, you haven't done the regular work. If you're a vendor coming to me and say, hey, GAM Consulting or whatever, I would like to have some more accounts. I said, why would I give you more accounts? You never even satisfied the accounts I gave you. I know, but I need some extra money. Give me some more accounts. You're behind in these accounts. Customers are already upset. Do you see the rationale? Think about it. When you're looking at the extra credit are for employees who have been working hard and for some reason just need that, it takes them a little bit longer to master the task, or it's like a handicap. I just started playing golf. You can't compare me with someone who's been playing 5 years, so to give me a handicap, so many points. So even though I'm not the best, but I'm at least comparative, so I could at least win, and it'll be a fair game because I get the extra points in that. Okay? Or if those who are playing bowling, they give you a handicap, or any kind of sports, you give a handicap. As a team that's not as up to the same par as someone's been playing longer, they'll give them some additional points. So it'd be a fair game, so you're not slaughtering, or you're basically the other team has such an advantage you really demoralize the other team. Okay? Attribute measurements, looking at graphics scale, so list of traits, providing traits. This is good for like some team building, subjectivity kind of employees uses some kind of scale. How do you communicate with our employees? Even though it's subjective, you still have to have some kind of examples. Because if I say you're not a team player, you don't communicate. What do you mean? I'm a good communicator. Remember when you communicate to Harry or Sally last time and you yelled at her and she just asked you, I didn't understand this, and you said, hey, look, this is the third time I've telling you, instead of being patient and saying, hey, I told her the last 3 times she didn't understand it, but I did tell her the same time. So if she didn't understand it the first time, I try to change my example so maybe she didn't understand the way I presented. That's how it makes a good manager, a good leader. From an HR perspective, you have to understand that other employees may not take that information the same way you take the information. So you have to understand their learning styles, how they absorb, where they, what kind of experience, what kind of attributes they have, what kind of skills are they bringing in. And that's where HR brings in that soft skills in the performance and make sure that the employee, when they look at those goals, they have that sense that, yes, I could get it. I mean, I get the A, but I could get a B and it's still a good grade. Or I could get that C, or I could get that D. And you don't want to get to F, then you really failed. It's not bad, okay? And behavior measurements, look at certain behavior. Critical incidents, those are always good. Remember, a lot of times I remember some employees will really a pain in the butt at the beginning, for lack of better words, but at the end they start behaving good. So I always remember the good behavior. Now, do you remember the bad behavior or the good behavior first? And sometimes it should be a balance, because let's say they did all good, and the last thing they did, one bad incident with a customer, that's the last thing you remember, and you may downgrade them, but they've worked well for 11 months out of the year, and then one time they had a bad incident, and now you have set their grade. It should be the other way. They made the one mistake, okay, it just happened. If it was at the beginning of the term that you're evaluating them, you would say, oh man, there, but then all the rest of the time, oh, they did an improvement. So could something happen? When you're working with customers or other employees, the human nature, the communication, it could be just at one time, it just happened at the wrong timing, it happened at the end, but what about all that 99% that they did well? That's how you should evaluate the person. And it's easier said than done. So remember, a lot of times we remember the most current activity or behavior that happened to a person. So something did something good, you may, like the halo effect to give them a better rating. So just remember that. But write down the different incidents, the good and the bad, and try to compare them. Anchored rating. If I'm looking at this, let me move this up a little. Rates behavior in terms of a scale that describes different levels of performance, showing specific statements. And then the next one is organizational behavior, OBS, variation of bars, the one above. All behaviors necessary for effective performance. Ask manager to rate frequency. An employee has exhibited the behavior during the rating period. Remember, let the employee kind of know what you're looking for. It kind of helps them. Don't second guess what they should know. And I'm looking at, I've been married for a while, and sometimes even now I don't assume I know what my wife wants. I think she knows, but tell me outright. I said, well, you know it. No, she says, I wish you wouldn't do that. That makes it easier for me, and it makes it easier for the employee. Okay? Ladies and husbands, husband and wives, same thing. Let the other spouse know what's bothering you. Okay, 360 employee is basically you get feedback from anyone that I touch. People underneath me, people at my equal, customers, vendors, and this way it gives me a whole value. 360 evaluations, when they were introduced into business about 10 years ago, to give or take, they've been out there a while, but it really was taken hold by business hand and foot. They were basically used for developmental purpose. They're time consuming. You had all these people, somebody has to gather information, they compile it, and it gives you a quick overview about what other people think about you, your personality and everything else. And it gives individuals, not only yourself, but other individuals, basically yourself, how you're viewed by other individuals doing different tasks or different communications and different connections that you have within the internal network or within the external network outside the organization. That's what it was used for. And then you had development. Oh, you didn't listen good, so you had developmental classes. What happened over the years, this was also a tool used for performance evaluation. Now a lot of companies utilize this 40 to 50% for performance evaluation, which now with your list, it's like I'm an individual. As long as the police officer is there, my boss is there, I'm one of the nicest persons in the world. I follow the laws. I always follow the laws. But I follow the laws, I obey. What happens when I don't have anyone watching me? Am I that same honest, ethical person following the laws and doing everything ethically? That's where the 360 comes in. It has this plus, it has this negative. It's here to stay, and I think to me, I'd rather hear from everyone else how I'm doing. It keeps me honest. It keeps me well. Just be careful. Sometimes your dependence on the function that the individual is doing. Some people, if they didn't get their way because they didn't follow policies or everything else, they may give the individual a negative 360 review. So you have to look at the total individual and the total picture on that. Okay, now quality. When I'm looking at performance, quality always has to be part of your performance measurement. You don't want to do just work just to get numbers out there, because customers aren't going to come in. Customers want the best product at the least expensive price, but a high-end quality product. Employees want to provide a high quality product. They could feel proud when they create and do a high quality product. When they talk to the customers, they want to, don't say you only have 30 seconds. You may take 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Zappos, I just use that as an example overall. They let the individual talk to those customers as long as they want until they satisfy that customer. I think there should be a limit on that, but that's their model. It works out well for them, but now I know Amazon or someone else is picking them up, and are they going to follow that model? You should at least have maybe 2 or 3, 5 minutes. You have a customer that talks to you for 90 minutes. That's a long time to be wasting on one customer. That's just me personally, but from an HR perspective, depending on your organization, if that's what your organization wants, then you have to, as an HR, make sure that training is being administered to meet the company objectives, the morals, and the values of the organization. Okay? And quality is part of that, so make sure. That's why I always say these calls could be quality monitored. Okay, if I'm looking at rating errors, now this is one from not only from customers but from employees. Everyone has these rating errors, so you have to kind of look at them from the contrast errors. Rater compares an individual not against an object or standard but against other employees. You could do that if you're doing behavioral subjectivity. But if it's something objective, if it's more objective I have, that's what I'm comparing them against, this objectivity portion. What's the definition? The rater tends to use only one part of the rating scale. Make sure you use all of it. Leniency, make sure rater rates everyone near the top because they feel they don't want to hurt anybody. Strictness, the rater is over strict and doesn't give anyone that ability because they're such a perfectionist. Usually those type of individuals will make poor raters and poor manager. I'm such a perfectionist. A perfectionist, we want that perfectionist, that quality, but when you're dealing with people, most people won't achieve that perfectionist. It takes over time. You've got there over time, and now you want that perfect individual. Look, when those of you dealing with kids and everything else, you treat them like they're teenagers or adults, and they're only 4 years old, 5 years old, or 15. They haven't developed yet. You have to understand that you have to look at where they are in the developmental stage, how much did they learn at this point, and employees and everything else is the same, right? So you got to look at it. Where are they at? They're new employees, medium employee, they've been there a while, or they're my experienced employees. Okay, and then central tendency puts everyone in the middle, okay? Now you have the other one, this is the definition, when I look at the rater bias, often lets their opinion of one quality. Remember, there's something about the person I like. He's real personable, and I rate him high and everything else, and he's really terrible on everything else. The halo effect, when a bias is in a favorable direction, this can mistakenly tell employees they don't need to improve in any area. Remember, we all need improvement. Someplace we need some kind of improvement. Okay, Horn's error, when bias involves negative ratings, can cause employees to feel frustrated and defensive. And sometimes you're biased and give them a negative rating, and it's just subjective, and they're actually doing the work, and that's driving them. They don't understand. Wait, I'm doing everything they want. I've done this. I got the number, and then you're saying, no, I'm not a good. I haven't achieved the goal, but I maxed the goals, achieved the goal. You got to be careful on that. And then you have political. When I look at political collaboration, a meeting at which managers discuss employees' performance ratings, provide evidence supporting. When I look at to eliminate political, you have collaboration meeting. So it's not me having politics in there from my own perspective. I have other managers looking at the same employees and seeing, am I taking the politics out of them? Am I actually rating this employee on the merit and what he or she's accomplished? Okay? Okay, distorting performance evaluation to advance one's own personal goal. I want to say I got the best department, so I rate everyone high, but my numbers don't show it. Okay, so I've got that. Giving feedback on performance, scheduling feedback. You should always have some kind of schedule every month, every 6 months. Like, even though a lot of companies have annual and semi-annual feedback, what I tell the employees who work for me, semi-annual feedback, that's when we formally could sit down. You could come to me anytime and look at that and see, how am I doing? Ask me for my feedback. You're doing okay. I could say, well, you could adjust here, a little weak here that could affect you at the end. That is no problem, but that allows you to come in. If I come in on always asking you think I'm micromanaging you as a manager. But if I have an open door policy, if the employee has respect towards me, if the employee thinks of me as a person they could talk to, and remember, this is where HR comes in and teaches management how to be that open respectful employee, not the jerk. Doesn't mean I'm wishy-washy, I'm giving away, I'm open up. I have respect, I still have authority, and that individual comes to me, and because I'm trained, if I have issues, or to train the employee, how do you approach your manager when you want to find out? Say, hey, I want to get a check and balance. And what happens, HR understands each manager because they're dealing with him or her on different levels and different functionalities, different departments, different task meetings. So when they're talking to the employees, say, here's what George is looking at. He's strictly objective, looking at the numbers. Give him the number, George will be happy. I'll work with you. Here's what George is looking at. He's looking at customer satisfaction, employees, looking at teamwork. Make sure you work well with other team members. Don't complain all the time. Okay, and then legal and ethical issues. Is it legal? Am I performing it? Am I discriminating against one type of a culture or ethnicity or a person who has a disability or a gender or anything else? This is where HR is looking at the performance, look at the measurements, look how I'm administrating it, look at how I've administrated to everyone else. Say, well, George, you've got 20% Hispanic, but 20% of your Hispanic or Latino population are all negative, where the other 80% or vice versa. The numbers don't make up. You mean to tell me you don't have any negative in your Caucasian or male or female or cross-gender, whatever. Remember, that's where HR is looking at the numbers, and they're the check and balance to make sure. I may be doing something that I have an unconscious bias I'm doing and don't even realize it, because it could be one of these other things, these rating errors that we talked about, the contrast, distribution, the rater bias, or something else that I may even not know is happening. But HR should pick that out and come and say, George, the numbers don't look out right. You're failing this percentage. Maybe you're not presenting that information to them accurately. Maybe they don't understand what you really want. Maybe you have to look at how you're telling them to achieve the goals or what their measurements are. Okay, and that's where they come in here. And then the lawsuits, any kind of discrimination, unjust, they're looking at, and legal defensible performance measurements should evaluate the behavior or results rather than the traits. Multiple raters, that's where you have a lot of managers. When we look back on the feedback, when you could have it distribution, or you have at a middle manager, usually it's one or two, three other peers are also evaluating me, plus different next level evaluating the direct reports underneath to make sure that I am not biased just for my individuals that are working for me. Okay. Top management by upper management, all performers should be rating, and appeals mechanism if I feel that something didn't happen. Okay, and that's basically our chapter or our session today on human resources, managing employees' performance. Remember, tell the employees what's expected. If they know what's expected, they'll achieve it. And let them know. Those are the students who are taking me in a course management class, either Blackboard or some other course management. You already know where your grades are, right here. Boom, boom, boom. The minute you do a task, your overall grade changes. You know what I mean? So tell the employees, here's meets expectation. That's like an A. Here's you exceed expectation. That's a B. Here's what you do if you just did something like this or below expectation. That's a C or D. Let them have something to evaluate. Give them some feedback. When you give them the feedback at the 6-month review, yours is not to get them down there so you can put them. Some managers, because they got the force ranking, they're doing certain things just to put somebody at the bottom just to get rid of them. Maybe they don't deserve to be in the organization, but my whole thing in management, participative management, and since employees are an asset that we should not abuse, but to help, HR should say, how do I get this employee to be that top employee, that top the skills? I give them goals. I give them my performance. If the performance is not achieving the goals I want or the results, is it a training issue? Let's go to training issue. How do I measure them? And let's go back. So that's where HR, you're looking at the training. You look at the performance. Am I performing? Am I measuring too hard? Where is the lack? What is the issue? Do I have the right individual? Do I have the right skill set? All this is part of performance, because once you get that employee, since it's a good asset, you want to build that employee so he or she grows, either becomes a manager. As the company grows, they could bring new people in there, but they already got the culture. They understand the outcome. They understand how to get there. They understand the communications. This is everything else. So they know the feedback. They know where they stand. They have the respect. Even if they leave your organization, they'll take that skill and say, that's a good company to work for. I always knew I stood with my boss. I always knew that the goals were achievable. I always knew what I had to do to achieve the goals. So all this is part of performance, managing employee performance. Think of yourself as an employee. Make sure they know the game, the rules of the game. Once they know the rules of the game without any cheating and everything else, they know how to make sure that those rules of the games aren't tarnished or contaminated, that everyone's playing fair, and you'll be surprised how your organization will prosper because the goals are achievable. It's not like you've got this carrot and no one could ever reach the carrot. You had the carrot, they could taste the carrot, and each time you make the goals a little bit harder, but you give them better tools, and they get better and they grow, and they'll achieve that goal that the organization wants, and the growth will be there before you know it. Okay, my name is Dr. George Mochocki, and thank you again for taking this session, Managing Employee Performance, and I'll see you in the next session. Thank you.